Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. And in this video, I'm going to talk about how you shouldn't waste any time convincing anybody to do anything. And you ever notice that society almost guilt trips you for having standards and not wanting to work with certain people, right? And I remember this when I used to be a teacher, right? So I actually did a teaching stint for a short period of time. And one of the things that was really crazy is seeing the vast number of students who did not want to be there, right? And it's unfortunate that we live in a society that forces kids to go to school and then they say the same thing. Oh, college is great because people actually want to be there. People don't want to be in college either. And that's why a lot of like professors, you look at professor forums on the internet, they'll give you the scoop and tell you that most college students have checked out, right? And that's kind of the dangers of trying to convince people to do things that they don't want to do. Because essentially, if you have to beg for the order, and we're just going to talk in sales and marketing speak, right? If you have to beg for the order, you're going to have to beg them during fulfillment, right? And you want the opposite of that. You want to make your life easy and be able to make money. And the most important thing is not to convince people to work with you. You have to do the job of finding the people who want to work with you, right? It's like they've already convinced themselves that, hey, I want to work with you because they understand they have, whether you're doing YouTube videos, social media, or they understand your personality, that you provide value to them that maybe another person has not in a certain way, right? But the secret is that you only work with people who want to work with you. So many people cannot do that because our society has brainwashed, guilt tripped most people for having standards in their life and saying, "Hey, I don't want to work with these type of people." Right? I don't want to work with lazy people. And they say, "Well, you got to convince them to do this and that." Here's the thing. Convincing doesn't do anything. Buying stuff and giving away for free doesn't do anything. You know how many times in my life I try to convince people to eat healthy with me because I was looking for people like, kind of like partners at the gym to kind of like help me in my health journey, do juicing, possibly make smoothies. I even bought juicers for a couple of people. It cost me $300 to $400. You know how many people I know in my life who do juicing? Zero, right? So as you can see, I'm a little bit disappointed. And the reason I'm disappointed is because I felt like I had to convince other people to do what it is that I thought was going to be the best for them, and they did absolutely nothing. Like, you ever have people like that where you're excited about something, you share it, and this is like one of the most insightful ideas, and they just look at you like you're the biggest idiot on earth. Happens to me all the time. Still happens to me now. But the difference is that I got $1,000 blender, I got like two juicers, I got more than half my mortgage paid off, bought our house at a discount. So I guess if I can't convince other people to work with me, that's perfectly fine. But I'm going to maintain my sanity by only working with people who want to work with you. And this is true when you're doing real estate investing too. One of the biggest tenets of real estate investing is that you have to learn how to buy properties at a discount, right? And there's basically you just find probable sources of distress. But the main thing is that you cannot convince people to sell at a discount unless there's a clear need, right? And so a lot of people think you're in the convincing game. You're in the target and identifying game. And the whole point of sales isn't so to convince. That's, your marketing should have filtered out the people who have been convinced that they want to work with you. The whole point of sales is just to kind of answer any objections, right? That's the whole point of sales. Now, here's the thing. This is the same philosophy I have with my Zoom calls, right? If I'm actually going to put some doubt into your brain that you shouldn't join this group. So if I find out that you have a spouse, I'm not going to convince you to try to join the group. I'm going to ask you, do you want to think about it, talk about your spouse? Number two, if I find out that you're broke and I'm still will say, hey, here are the prices of something I'm trying to sell you. Do you want it or not? But I'm going to say, hey, I understand that you're having financial difficulties. Is this something you want to think about or not? And the reason I do that is if you say you have to think about it, then you're not a person who definitely wants to work with me. and I might send you a follow-up email if you request it. But after that, I'm not gonna like beg you to join this group. I'll just never follow up with you again after the first follow-up, right? And I know from marketing gurus and teachers, you have to have 12 touches in order to convert to a sale or something like that. But here's the thing, I'm too lazy for that, right? I want to make money and find people who are going to make my life better. Kind of like, I don't know if you know Ken and Ryu from Street Fighter, but basically people who who lift me up as much as I lift them up, right? I'm looking for those type of people. I'm not looking for people to necessarily follow me. I'm looking for people to inspire me as much as I inspire them, right? Learn and grow together. That's what I'm looking for. And this is why I don't want to convince anybody to not to work with me. Like, I don't want to convince you, because it's going to remind me of my teaching days where you got to convince kids to actually stop talking and actually listen to the lesson. And here's a crazy thing. I don't know if you've ever heard this story before, and possibly have not. I could just tell from the environment that these kids were going to blame me that I didn't teach anything, even though I taught what was supposed to be taught. And so what I started doing is I just started emailing all the kids the answers to the tests. I knew they were going to fail just because how lazy they were. And then when it became parent conference teacher time, guess what happened? I just showed them, like, hey, I actually emailed all your kids the answers to tests, and they still failed. And then that's when they realized that their own kids were full of S, right? But what's my point? The reason why the kids are like that is because their society is trying to convince them to go to school rather than just having kids go to school because they want to be there, right? Two totally different situations. Okay? But that's the philosophy that I work with. And here's the thing. We only have two people who've actually joined this group, and I sold them educational packages. One of the things that I actually thought was quite, something I remember is that when one of our calls, um, there was actually financial difficulty, a little bit of financial difficulty. And I actually told the prospect, like, hey, I understand you may have some financial difficulty. So if you join the group and it actually causes you financial hardship, I actually don't want you to join, because if you see any of my other YouTube videos, I just like brag about, oh, I have money and I'm paying off debt quickly, right? I don't need your money. Like, I really don't. The only reason I charge you is because if you don't pay attention, right? And so if I introduce those seeds of doubt and you're able to surpass them, I definitely want to work with you. But you have to have that mentality. And here's the thing. You know why most landlords struggle? It's because, and they have tenants who don't pay rent. It's because they think they have to convince the tenants to have to pay rent rather than tenants who want to rent your house, right? Two totally different mentalities. I mean, when I first put my rental house out for rent, what was happening is I was getting all these jokester prospects who were like, "Oh, I'll fill out an application. Oh, I'm gonna ghost you, ha ha ha." And then one day I get a phone call like, "I'm gonna pay you a year's worth of rent." So if I, compared those prospects to that prospect's definitely someone who wants to work with me that I don't have to convince. Whereas all those other people were jokesters who you'll have to convince to stay at your rental house. Two totally different mentalities. Okay? All right. Well, this is Korean Atlanta Mentorship. So hopefully this was a good mindset training as to why you don't want to waste time convincing anybody to do anything. You only want to find people who want to work with you or out of the gate, right? That's really all you want to do. Your life will be much easier, and you're not going to waste your time spinning your wheels with a bunch of people. All right. Well, if you're interested in joining a group and interested in me selling you stuff like educational packages and learning about financial literacy and something else, I don't know, it's late at night. I'm just kidding. Financial literacy and real estate investing, go ahead and click the Google form link below. Other than that, have a great night. And oh my goodness, it's 12:33 a.m. already. I gotta go to sleep. All right. Bye, everybody.